So what kind of moron would go and sign a pitcher with a career 5.00 ERA to a long-term extension? What kind of a moron? Okay, I would. Me, right here, this moron. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins where you found this. I like Mitch Keller. I will acknowledge this. I have a little bit of a bias in this regard. I have seen this kid go from wanting to crawl under a desk and die after any number of starts to someone who suddenly spent the better part of 2022 walking around with his chin up, his chest out a little bit. Not in a cocky way, not in an arrogant, off-putting way, just in a way of saying, hey, I'm here. I belong. I'm a big league pitcher. And that's really what happened to Mitch this year more than anything else. If you think of all the different Mitch storylines going back to, hey, everybody, look, these people in North Carolina just instantly uncovered a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. Okay, maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. Maybe Mitch just said, you know what? I'm going to throw the ball 100 miles an hour because this other stuff isn't working for me. Pitching isn't working, so I'm just going to throw. And he's always been able to throw. He's always been able to throw hard. He's always had stuff. He just hasn't had the poise to match it. He hasn't had the command to match it. And strangest of all strange things, by the time we got through a frustrating first, 6-7 weeks of the season, April and a big chunk of May, and the results weren't really there. Yeah, he could still pop the gun at 98, 99, whatever, and he could still impress everybody with his stuff, but he wasn't getting out of the fourth inning. And he was getting hit pretty solidly. And it looked like the same results that we'd seen over his first 3 years with the Pirates. And you're thinking, what's going on? What's really going on here? Because this doesn't even make sense. And you're wondering, is he throwing the fastball enough? Is he throwing it too much? And he, independently, made the decision that he was going to try some other stuff. Literally in this case. And he started working on a sinker. And he started perfecting his slider. And he was thinking, hey, maybe I can take advantage of the fact that these hitters are now sitting there waiting on triple-digit heat, and I'm going to just pull the string on them left and right. He was demoted briefly to the bullpen. Remember that? Seems crazy now, but he was. Not a bad move by the Pirates. I'm not criticizing them. I don't think they had any choice at that point. And he was able to mess with some stuff out there. You can do that when you're in the pen. It's not that same sense of, oh my God, I've got another start in 3 days or 4 days or whatever it is, and all you're doing is ramping up toward that start. This way you kind of just go off into your own little world, and that's what Mitch did. And what do you know? He started pitching. He started throwing lots of different types of pitches, and they didn't all work. They certainly weren't all well commanded early on. But I remember even then, at that time, the smile he'd have on his face, and he'd joke about it. He'd be open with me about it. He'd just go, the slider, I had no idea where it was going. No idea where it was going. And he didn't apologize for it because he was still getting ugly, awkward swings on it. And he started to build up some results. Then he started to do what you'd hope he'd do next, which is command these pitches a little bit better. This portion of Daily Shot of Pirates is brought to you by our friends at North Shore Tavern. That's directly across Federal Street from PNC Park. It's home of Steak on a Stone, an eating experience, underscoring the word experience. The steak is brought to you partially cooked on an 800-degree stone, and you do the rest. It's a ton of fun, it's a great meal, and it's a baseball atmosphere like no other in Pittsburgh. North Shore Tavern, right across Federal Street from PNC Park. And by season's end, after all that weirdness, he ended up with a 3.91 ERA, which is not going to win anyone an award. But to think that he'd have finished under 4 when he was at 6.5 in May was really something. And the way he went about it was that much more impressive. And he and I talked about this on the last day of the regular season a week and change ago. His numbers weren't going to floor anybody. It wasn't going to be about the 5 million strikeouts. It wasn't going to be about going 7, 8 innings deep or whatever. Most of his lines looked like 6 innings, 2 runs, 4 hits, 7 Ks, 2 walks. Tip your cap as you leave. And that's really okay. It is. That's a big league pitcher. That's what he became. Now, can he become more than that? Yes, of course. I'll keep repeating. He has the stuff. He's certainly got the live arm. But what he needed all along at the Pittsburgh level was a foundation. He needed something that he could build off of instead of just constantly trying to survive from, not just from start to start, but from inning to inning, from different parts of the lineup to another part of the lineup. That's what he was going through. And he got through that by building a year-long foundation for who he's going to be. And yes, I would go to him and offer a long-term contract because this is the type of starting pitcher that the Pirates need to keep, including, I believe, the fact that he wouldn't be, I don't feel at any stage of his career, prohibitively expensive, certainly not based on his track record to date. But you, meaning the Pirates management, have the unique insight into everything about him. You know to trust him. You know what he's made of, both good and bad. And you know how he got to where he is as a pitcher, and you can trust the trajectory. Someone else wouldn't put that money into him. For anyone who doesn't know Mitch's contract status, he just finished his third and final year of what's called 0 to 3 time, when you're paid pretty much the major league minimum. He's going to be a first-time arbitration player this winter. He'll obviously be tendered. The Spotrac website, which isn't always dead on with this stuff, estimates that he's a $2.3 million first-year ARB guy. I'm not buying that. I think he could end up getting as much as 3, but that's really nothing in the bigger picture. The Pirates do hold Mitch's rights for the next 3 years through arbitration, but that's not the kind of contract I'm talking about. I'm talking about guaranteeing his arbitration years and then setting yourself up for a year or 2 of buyouts of his free agency years. I feel like that's something this team can now do safely. Maybe you'll disagree. When we come back, J1Q. Who asks, DK, what are you hearing about Q coming back? Jeff means Jose Quintana. Seriously, are they thinking about it? If it was such a good fit here, then why not? Your talk earlier this week on the show about Francisco Liriano got me thinking that it would make even more sense. What I'm hearing, to answer your question directly, Jeff, regarding Quintana, is that the Pirates definitely want him back. And what I know for a fact, versus just hearing it, is that Quintana wants to come back. Not guessing at that one. So if you look at the year that Quintana had, if you look at how he performed in Pittsburgh from spring training on, so consistent, so competitive, and he did it against everybody. I mean, he mowed down the Dodgers. He mowed down the Yankees. These were the 2 best hitting lineups, arguably, in all of baseball, and he cut them down. This is what you want on your team. Now, Q's going to be 34 years old. But that can be a positive as well because, I'll say it again, he wouldn't cost all that much. If Q puts himself on the open market, he's going to have teams offer him something significant, but not for more than 2 years. There will not be a single offer that crosses his agent's desk for more than 2 years. The question is, how much are those 2-year offers? And are the Pirates willing to, I'll pause for the laughter, step up and make it happen? They certainly have the funds. It's just a matter of that whole Bob Nutting is cheap thing. But I'm with you. I like it. And I'm not going to overstate the leadership thing because I try not to do that in general in my coverage. That's more of a thing that people talk about when it gets down to not really knowing the sport and so forth, including in this particular business that I'm in. You're way more likely to talk about leadership and intangibles when you don't actually know the sports or the people in them. But in this case, Q was definitely that guy for the Latin American players early on. I think once it was very, very clear that he was going to get traded, things became a little bit more awkward. But he was that guy. And in a room that's got a fair amount of Latin American pitchers, including Luis Ortiz and Johan Oviedo, that can make a difference. But not all Latin American nations and peoples are always seeing themselves as we're all Latin Americans. So on that note, I want to point out that Q is from Venezuela, Yerry De Los Santos is from the Dominican, and Luis Ortiz is from the Dominican, Johan Oviedo is from Cuba, which has nothing to do with any of them. So I also don't want to overstate that part either. Look, Q's a good pitcher. He's a lefty. Theoretically, just because he's a lefty, he could pitch until he's 50. And he made a very, very good fit in Pittsburgh. He is genuinely grateful to the Pirates and specifically Oscar Marin for having maybe rescued his career. And yes, he wants to come back. It's really more on the team than anything else. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everyone listening to Daily Shot of Pirates. We'll do another one tomorrow.